Well, I'm just getting over COVID, so if I cough in this, I apologize. So this is really about how we're going to communicate. When we communicate with other people, or we create a presentation, or we create some type of canned communication, or even interactive, right? What are the things we should think about? And what are the kind of checklists we should have to make sure this communication is going to work the way we want? This really came out of reviewing a PowerPoint presentation, and there were parts of it I didn't like about mine, parts I don't like about other people's, parts I like. The question was, how much was too much message in the time we had, and what level of depth? So what are the top 3 to 5? We used to call this the elevator pitch, right? If I was in an elevator for 30 seconds with somebody, what would the pitch be? And in that case, what's the top 1 to 3 things I'm going to communicate? Because that's all the time I got. And if I'm doing a communication in something canned, I still think, what are the top 3 to 5 things? And then you can have a whole bunch of detail depending on the audience. I'm, fleshing that out. So in this one here, I said, what are the top 3 to 5 things? I showed 3 topics, and then a couple of those had subtopics. And that's because I'm drilling in. I'm going to give a little more detail. But in the end, I should be able to have an agenda at the top of what I'm doing, a 3x5 card that says, this is what I want to tell you. And then at the end, a 3x5 card that says, this is what I told you, depending on the medium. So the next question is, who's the audience? And that determines the depth of this. And it also gets bound into what outcome do we expect, right? So if I'm doing this communication for a specialist, right, that's going to be a lot different level of abstraction than it is a C-level. Now, sometimes C-levels have been in your space before, and so we, are VPs, and so we got to put enough detail in, and they'll go nitpick against kind of like what they know. But, a specialist item might be very technical, like if it was an engineer, or the VP is going to be very strategic. If I'm doing supply chain, the supply chain team gets details, and the executive team gets roll-ups, right? But they need enough supporting detail in case somebody asks a question. So who's the audience? Are they leadership? Are they your team? Is this something you're going to iterate on while you're communicating with your team? Is it training documentation for your team? Is it for partner teams? Is it for partner from frenemy teams? The teams you're supposed to be working with that really have no interest in working with you because they only care about what they're working on, right? Is it a customer? Are we trying to communicate? So what are we trying to communicate? And then who's the audience? And that's going to determine the level of detail and how much background we need to provide. Hey, we're thinking of doing something completely different, and I'm going to go communicate this. We're taking a different strategic approach. Okay, we might need some background, right? So we're going to take this approach, but we're going to flesh out a little bit of the justification for that approach. Then the question is, what outcome do you want? This feels like what we talk about meetings. I did a couple talks on meetings, and the question is always, why are you doing this communication, right? Are you looking for buy-in? Hey, we're making this decision, or we think we want to make this decision. We're trying to get people to buy in. Are you expecting them to take action, right? I was in one the other day, and the entire talk was about what we needed another team to do because we had this certain set of requirements, right? So what action? In that case, we needed them to take action or make a decision. Yes, they're going to support this, or no, they're not. Or we're making a product decision, like a piece of software, a piece of hardware, a piece of machinery, right? We need them to make a decision based on this communication that we're doing. So are they buying in? It's a fait accompli. Are they going to take an action? Are we asking them to make a decision so we can are we expecting to get a follow-up out of this? This is like the horrible thing when you set up a meeting and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So when I give a presentation or we give a talk, maybe what I want is follow-up. Hey, we're going to do training on this. Here's the basics of this to get you interested and tell you. And now we need follow-up. We're going to have to do follow-up communication with you to go flesh this out, right? So what were the top 3 things we're going to communicate? Who's the audience? That determines the altitude. And then that will change what the outcome is. I might have a presentation that's for executives to make a decision. And then now that we've agreed to it, I'm going to get buy-in from teams. And so I'm going to tweak that communication so it becomes a buy-in type of communication because the decision's already been made. The final thing here, I think, is if we're going to provide materials, persistent materials, how will those materials be used? Will they be just used in a presentation and communication and they'll be visible in a recording like this one? Are they going to be used for train the trainer? So the docs that we provide, actually, we're going to use the exact same ones, so I got to provide some background info for you to give the same talk like I did. Is it going to be documentation? I worked at a large bank in McLean, and all the executive documentation was PowerPoint. They were like, Word documents or something, all built in PowerPoint. So we didn't do a lot of diagrams with abstract, right? Where it could be used, like if you do something with not a lot of words in it, you can actually use it for different altitudes and different audiences, right? Because you can tune what you say based on the audience or what you're trying to make happen at that time. But these guys actually did documentation. So there were hundreds of words on every page. It was horrible for doing communication because you had to read every page and then you repeated all the words on every page. And so it was pretty evil. And then, or is it going to be passed on to others? And so in that case, you know, a lot of times, actually the words aren't always, they're useful, but you can get stuck in the words when you do it like a PowerPoint. And so sometimes the abstraction is good, diagrams and pictures, because people understand that you just provide enough information. So what are the top 3 things we want to communicate? Who's the audience going to be? What outcome do I expect from this communication? And if I provide a communication and a set of materials, how do I expect those materials to use? And will they live on to continue to be used for that and other purposes? So when you're planning on communicating or giving a presentation or creating presentation materials, just make the checklist, run down the list, and make sure you understand the parameters for this thing you're communicating. Have a great communication. I don't know. I was going to come up with something pithy, but I don't know it. Have a great day.